What's up, everybody? We are live. What's going on, Brad? How you doing, brother?
Dude, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Welcome to the Mindset Mogul podcast. If this is your first time listening, I'm Josh Jacobs. This is Brad Mora. And today, hopefully, we're going to get a little bit better. What are we going to be talking about today, Brad?
We are talking about how to deal with uncertainty.
Dealing with uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty today.
There's a lot of uncertainty today. So coming out of this last weekend, we heard about a top 20 bank basically failing. Fortunately, the federal government stepped in and helped take care of all the depositors at the bank. But bigger picture, there is a systemic issue with the banks right now, which is it's a very uncertain thing that people have to deal with. It's a scary thought. And compound that with, we just spent the last couple of years facing a worldwide pandemic and are also currently engaged in Ukraine is engaged in a conflict with Russia. And it's not likely that that leads to world war. But again, there's just like uncertainty that surrounds all of these things. There's a lot of things going on in the world that people have the right to feel uncertain about.
And lots of forces trying to make you feel even more uncertain, like the news, like media, like all those things. They're forcing uncertainty down our throats. So, yes, I feel the uncertainty for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into it, but there's a choice whether or not you focus on those things and allow those inputs to be a force in your mind that make you feel negative feelings. That's a choice that you have to make. And so we'll get into that a little bit later in the episode, but it's a good call out. And I think that's actually a good segue into, let's talk about the problem with uncertainty. What is the real issue with uncertainty? Because uncertainty is always going to exist. I know I just named a couple of big things that are happening in the world that people can be uncertain about. But the reality is there is an infinite number of things to feel uncertain about. And there will always be things in your life, both at the micro level in your own local life and at the macro level, things happening in the world that there are uncertainty about. So I think we need to align on the fact that uncertainty is just going to be a consistent thing that people face throughout their entire life. It's pervasive. But what the real problem with uncertainty is not that it exists, because it's going to exist no matter what. It's what feelings do uncertainty cause us to feel? And then even more importantly, based on those feelings, what actions or inaction does it cause in the lives of the people that are feeling this way? So uncertainty is going to cause a feeling, and then that feeling is going to cause you to either take action or not to take action. And that's where the real problem lies, in uncertainty and how people respond to it. And so Josh and I spent a little time thinking about what happens when people face uncertainty in their lives. What are the chain of events that the average person might go through when they start to experience uncertainty? And the first two things we came up with are, one, they begin focusing on external events in their life that they cannot control. Uncertainty causes them to focus on things that they cannot control. And in addition to external events, you also focus on future events. What are things in the future that I cannot control, that I'm putting my focus on and feel uncertain about? And it's reasonable that we focus on these things because the brain is wired to focus on things that help keep us alive. Like, that's just evolutionary fact. And when I say it's reasonable, that doesn't mean you should do it. It just means that it's something that the brain does no matter what. And so we're going to need to take steps to fight that and to retrain the brain on how to react to this uncertainty. And so once you start focusing on things in your life that you cannot control, you then start to generate feelings of fear, anxiety, depression, stress. When you put your focus on these external events, these future events, things that you don't have control over, the natural next step is for you to start feeling negative feelings in your life, feelings that you are out of control, feelings of anxiety about the future. And so the reality is, focusing on these things actually has little or no impact on your daily life. And even if it did, does it really matter since you can't control it? Like, should we be giving attention to anything that we can't control? What good does it do to you to focus on these things? And what impact is focusing on them going to have on your life? We came across a crazy study, and it showed that 85% of what humans worry about never happens. And so that blazing statistic is just evidence of all the things that we put our attention on, that we worry about, that we cannot control. Ultimately, it is a waste of time and energy. And it also creates feelings and emotions in your body that don't benefit you in any way. And so before we jump into talking about what's the solution for dealing with uncertainty, how can we create better feelings? How can we drive ourselves to take actions that improve our lives, even in the face of uncertainty? I wanted to take a little time with Josh to talk about how we've been negatively impacted by uncertainty in our own lives, and then also took in steps to face and improve ourselves in the face of that uncertainty.
Yeah, so that was a great breakdown by Brad. You know, for me, there's a lot of scenarios where uncertainty has caused me to act negatively or not act at all on things. And the first two things that come to my head are macro level things. One being when I was younger in high school, and I just felt uncertainty in general around everything in my life, because that's how teenagers feel. The teenagers feel uncertain. They don't know what they want to do. You're told, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Where do you want to go to school? What, all these things that you have no clue as a 15-year-old. That is one time where I reacted very negatively to uncertainty, and I became a heavy drug user, and all those things that I felt uncertain about, like Brad said, they caused me to have fear. They caused me to have anxiety. They caused me to have depression. They caused me to think about all these external events that really I didn't need to spend any time thinking about at that time. And my parents were getting divorced. That was a big uncertain moment when I was 15. I had no clue. I had grown up my whole life living in a, one family household, or however you want to put it, a nuclear family. And all of a sudden, my parents getting divorced, I'm going to live in two different places. That was uncertain. And those uncertain times drove me to using drugs to eliminate the feeling that the uncertainty gave me. The uncertainty gave me those feelings, and that's what I really wanted to, get rid of. I didn't get rid of the uncertainty. The uncertainty was there no matter what. My parents were getting divorced no matter what. I went through a life as a high school teenager that everybody else does no matter what. So the feelings were what I was trying to mask with that drug use. And outside of being an adolescent, when I was an adult and I was losing my business years ago, I had a lot of uncertainty around paying my bills and what the future of my business looked like. And that caused me to literally give up and go get a job. And maybe it was the right move, maybe it wasn't. But at the end of the day, the feelings that uncertainty gave me, I had a ton of fear. I had a lot of anxiety. I was depressed around the idea that my business was failing. And in looking back, I could have dealt with it differently. I say it's a negative thing that I got a job, when in reality, maybe it was the right move. But I know that I could have done more. I could have negated those feelings by taking more action in my business rather than letting those feelings stop me from taking action. So on a macro scale, those are the two things.
It was fear-driven decision-making at the time. You didn't resolve 100%. The feelings first. You let them guide the decision-making process. And that by itself ended up leading you to a situation that you weren't happy in. And so this is a perfect example of what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I know what's an example that you've had that you've dealt with uncertainty and it's given you a negative effect?
Yeah, I think I've only learned to cope with uncertainty well over the past probably 3 or 4 years. And so I can look back to times in my business where even super small things that had uncertainty attached to them were problematic for me. And so making cold calls for the business, I think this is something that a lot of people face. And it's a perfect example of it's uncertain that you don't know what's on the other end of that phone call. And that uncertainty creates this feeling of friction. There's anxiety about making the phone call. And earlier in my career, it put me in a position where I just wouldn't do those things. I let the anxiety win. I would find other things to work on. I would try and delegate it out to somebody else. And so instead of taking the massive action that I needed to in the business, the high leverage things that would actually push it forward, I chose not to because that uncertainty caused fear and anxiety. And then that caused me not to act. If I fast forward towards today, I am much better at looking inward and saying, what action can I take to just crush the uncertainty, or what thing can I be certain about that I can do? And it's to dial a phone.
I like the micro example though, because like, I think about something one of my friends said, like he's uncertain about, going and asking a girl on a date or something like that. Of course you're uncertain. You don't know if she's going to say yes or no, but if you don't do it, you could be passing up an opportunity to spend the rest of your life with your soulmate, and you would have no clue about doing it because you let your fear of rejection stop you. You let your fear of the uncertainty of her answer stop you from doing it in the first place. Like those little micro things happen every single day. Making a cold call, asking a girl on a date. I mean, there's a million examples, but having a hard conversation with a family member, like there's a lot of different examples on a micro scale that people deal with every single day that stop them from doing the thing entirely.
That is such a good example. It's pretty crazy if you think back to your like teenage years, especially when emotions had like the most gripping effect on you. I think as we grow into adults, it absolutely still happens, but it's not quite as volatile as it was then. It's very easy to pick out examples of just like how often in my daily life uncertainty stopped me from doing things. Like the uncertainty of how people would judge me was just this constant fear state that I lived in that drove my actions.
Putting out a video on Instagram or something, same thing. How are people going to judge me? The uncertainty of the reaction of the audience will stop me from putting out the video or something like that.
100%. And so that being said, I think it follows people into their adult lives and they just become more okay with not taking the action. You spend so long letting uncertainty win that it keeps you in the box. It becomes a normal state for you to see uncertainty and then to not take action. And that just becomes your normalized condition. And ultimately, as we're talking about this, like realizing that this is a root cause for a lot of people not actually achieving the success they want in their life, not achieving the fulfillment that they want in their life, because they are constantly subjugated by this uncertainty that is going to exist no matter what in everything that you do. And so it really matters about how you react and respond to that uncertainty. That's where the magic's going to happen. And so we've got 5 principles for how to deal with uncertainty. And these are tools that Josh and I use to help consistently remind and push ourselves forward in daily life and set ourselves up for success in the face of knowing that we're always going to be facing uncertainty.
I'm taking the first one because I have a great example of this. So the first one is to audit your inputs. Remove the sources of information that do not serve you and create fear or uncertainty in your life. So super easy example of this is media, watching the news. When COVID first came out, I was watching the news and, like I'm sure everybody was. You can't even watch anything else because watching the news is better than any TV show that you could ever put on. But the problem is because it was so intensive, it caused so much uncertainty and so many different feelings like, okay, well, I have fear of the world ending. I have, which quickly went away. I have anxiety about, my career and how this is going to affect our livelihood and all these things that, media gives you, right? So I cut out the media completely and my anxiety levels drastically decreased from the moment I cut out watching the news. Social media is another really good one. Obviously, we live in a world where people are addicted to scrolling. And the more you scroll, the more you're going to be comparing yourself to others, the more you're going to be thinking about things you're missing in your life versus having gratitude and thinking about the things you do have. And then conversations with toxic people. I mean, if you're constantly talking to toxic people, you yourself are going to become more toxic, and you're going to, adapt to the conversations that you're having. So I think that just being very aware of the inputs that you give yourself is an easy way to help yourself get over the uncertainty a little bit if you eliminate some of those sources of the uncertainty.
The mainstream media literally makes money off you feeling uncertainty because it creates those addictive fear feelings, and you're like, I need to know more. And so like their whole job is to keep you uncertain and engaged with what they're talking about. Like it's more interesting and more exciting when it's these uncertain, polarizing things. But the reality is it doesn't actually impact your daily life 99.9% of the time.
They've been saying the world is going to end for a long time, and it hasn't ended yet.
They really have. And also, when people come up to me and they're like, XYZ political thing is going on, like, aren't you worked up? I'm like, fuck off. Like, I've got enough personal development to go do and building of myself to put energy towards, to let somebody come in and try and work me up about something I have no control over. And so with auditing the inputs, I think it should be take drastic action to get these things out of your life, because it's low hanging fruit and you deserve to put yourself in a position to win. And so don't expose yourself and don't feel obligated to expose yourself to things that don't make you feel good and put you in a place of uncertainty and try to make you feel fear and anxiety. And so that is all bullshit. And the quicker you can strip it out of your life, the better.
What's number 2?
Recognize and attach uncertainty to opportunity. This one is a lot of what we talk about is reframing bad things into good things, problems into challenges to go face, things in your life that are going to keep you down into opportunities. And you can do the same thing with uncertainty. Like there are thousands or millions of businesses that have been built during recessions. And that's just an example of somebody who looked at a situation and said, people are experiencing fear. There is mass hysteria about the world ending. And instead that person goes and builds a business and they create generational wealth for themselves. Some of the biggest companies in the world were all started and built during recessions. I'll rattle off a couple: Google, Facebook, Apple, General Motors, Uber, Microsoft, IBM, Disney, Hyatt, FedEx, Trader Joe's are just a couple examples of companies that were built during recessions. And I'm just using this as a polarizing example of, you can look at uncertainty and instead of saying, wow, I'm just going to go sit on my ass because who cares anymore because the world is coming to an end. Instead, you realize that probably a lot of other people are thinking that. And now this is your opportunity to get ahead. Do what others won't and work hard in the face of this uncertainty. And you're likely going to put yourself in a position to win, especially compared to other people.
Yeah. And all those companies are very recognizable, obviously. So they did something right. Number 3, focus on yourself and what you can control. One of my favorite sayings in the entire world is control the controllables. How are you going to become the best version of yourself so that the external certainty does not matter? It's funny you brought up the thing about the political statement about, well, if something's happening politically, doesn't it piss you off? At the end of the day, regardless of your political views or what side pisses you off, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion, as Andy Frisell always says. So who cares what's going on in the world? You should just be focused on personal excellence, because no matter what's going on in the world, you can control personal excellence, and it will help you deal with any uncertainty that comes with your way if you're constantly working on becoming personally excellent. So what are some of the things that you have total control over in your life that you can focus on and be as certain as possible about? Health, what you eat, what you put into your body physically, what you put into your body mentally, what type of content you consume. Those are completely controllable. Your wealth, how you spend and save your money, what skills you are developing to acquire more money in the future. Relationships, how am I connecting with my family to bring them joy and happiness? What are my friendships like? What are the quality of my relationships? How much effort am I putting into those? So basically, the idea here is just build so much certainty in the things that you can control in your life that you're bulletproof to all the external circumstances that come your way. You just basically have to build an action plan for how to create that certainty in your life, which are going to be things that you can control. So get that saying engraved in your mind. Control the controllables. Anytime you feel uncertain about anything, just go back in your mind to control the controllables. What can I control? And just go there, and I think it'll help you a lot. What about number 4?
You say this all the time, and I think it's a cure-all for many ailments of the human mind. But having gratitude and then living in the present moment, ultimately a lot of uncertainty comes from focusing on things that are external. So things that literally aren't here right now, or things that are in the future. And so by focusing on the present moment, you can strip out a lot of certainty because you can control what's happening right here, right now, and what you focus on. And then in doing that, if you also work to have gratitude, you can't feel the negative feelings that uncertainty would cause you to have, like anxiety and fear. If you're feeling gratitude, you can't simultaneously feel those things. And so building the muscle and the practice of having gratitude and being right here, right now it's a quick tool to put into place when you start to feel yourself slipping into situations that uncertainty is starting to win. And then the final one is faith and trust in the universe or whatever higher power it is that you believe in. Ultimately, if you look at uncertainty, it's really just the universe, God, again, whatever it is that you believe in, things are going to unfold as they unfold in the external world around you. And you actually have to let that go. You can't control those things. And once you feel connected that this is like the world's going to unfold as to how it is, and let the stress go that's attached to that. And if anything, trust in that higher power to, be the guide for where the world's going to go. And then take that extra energy and just purely focus on yourself and what you can control. You put yourself in a very good situation where you believe that things are going to happen in your favor, and then you're taking action to go make those things happen. Did that make sense?
Yeah, and if you don't believe that things are going to happen in your favor, why would you even take the action in the first place? So it only serves you to believe that these things are going to happen. So to recap, filter your inputs, recognize and attach uncertainty to opportunity, control the controllables, have gratitude and live in the present moment, connect with a higher power, and have faith. So let's hit them with what we love to do at the Mindset Mogul podcast, which is hit you with an audience exercise at the end that you can practice today by yourself.
Okay. So first piece of the audience exercise is write down the answer to the following question. What is one area of your life that you feel uncertainty about right now? And once you answer that, next thing to answer is, what is the cause of this uncertainty? Once you have answered that, this is a super important part, is what emotions is this uncertainty causing you to feel? And what actions are those emotions causing you to take or not to take? And get very specific and be honest with yourself and seek truth when you're trying to figure out what this answer is. And once you recognize what the emotions are and what the lack of action or the wrong actions might be that it's causing, the final step is to build a mini action plan to combat this uncertainty, whether you're using one or all 5 of the techniques we talked about today. Come up with a small plan to address this single uncertainty. And then ideally, you're taking action daily to continue combating that type of uncertainty until it's gone from your life.
That was amazing. So go do that audience exercise. Brad, appreciate it. Anything else you want to add?
No, this has been fantastic. Thanks for being vulnerable today and talking about your past and how it applies here.
You too, brother. All right. Thank you all. Please share, like, review, do the duties. We really appreciate it. And we will see you in the next one. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.